Good morning. Good morning. Today we tell the story of how the world began. On this Earth Day when we celebrate this planet we live on, we tell the story of why there is something when there might have been nothing. We will tell the sacred story of how this all began. And you are invited to be part of the wonder and the play of this story. And I see that most of you have been enlisted into this storytelling already. And before we take on the whole sweep of creating the universe, we will take a little time to center ourselves, share some joys and sorrows, and notice our own lives before we look out across the story of creation. Lori Lucidian, who has helped us become part of this creation, will light our chalice this morning. And I invite you to speak the words of the covenant of this community, which you will find printed in the order of service. Love
is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to respect the nurturing power within all of us. Thus do we covenant.
I invite you to join in singing hymn 175, We Celebrate the Web of Life. And the music on that page is not the tune that we will sing this to. We will sing the tune of Amazing Grace, and we will sing the words to hymn 175.
A fragment of the perfect whole, in cactus and in quail, as much in tiny particles as in the great blue whale. Of ancient dreams we are the sum, our bones linked stone to stone, and bind our future worlds to come with words that were and are. Respect the water, land, and air, which gave all creatures birth. Protect the lives of all that share the glory of the earth.
Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come. Stardust and sunlight, mingling through time and through space. Out of the stars have we come. Up from time, out of the stars have we come. Out of the stars rising from rocks and the sea, kindled by sunlight on earth, arose life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Life, up from the sea. Eyes to behold, throats to sing, mates to love. This is the marvel of life, rising to see and to know. Out of your heart, cry wonder, sing that we live. During our offering time this morning, I invite you to join in singing, if you feel so moved, the First song on your song sheet, One Light. Some of you may know this song well, and some of you won't know it. You can join in or just let the warmth of the spring sunshine and this song warm you this morning. During this offering time, I also invite you to write down any joys or sorrows that you would like to share and bring them forward to our Tree of Life bowl, and I will read those joys and sorrows after this offering time. If you can't find a joy or sorrow card in the hymnal rack, the ushers can help you find one. The offering supports all of the stories that this congregation keeps telling to support thriving in our world. You are also welcome, of course, to light candles up front, and I will move those candles after our offering time up and out of the fray of creation that will follow. The morning offering for all of the stories and all of the creativity of this congregation will now be received. We have joys and sorrows written down here, and even as we hear these, we know that this community and the whole universe hold many more joys and sorrows, and we honor all of those in the silences between those things that are spoken. Nancy's late-breaking news is that she is hoping for the very best for her daughter Elizabeth and husband Michael, whose due date is today. So we know if we hear a cell phone go off. The Co-Brown Spring Concert is next Tuesday, Olivia wants us to know, and I'm so excited to play with this band. Unfortunately, our band director's this is our band director's last time conducting for a concert because he's retiring. Gaturas is grateful to have sold her condo and will be moving to a cottage in the woods this week. Delia wants us to know that she is on spring break, and there is a smiley face on this card. Another one says, my joy comes from seeing students uniting and speaking out. Their courage gives me hope, hope for truth, and hope for the building of community. And Doc wants us to know that this is his official coming out as a man. Doc is hoping to start hormone replacement therapy this summer. And so that means we all get to adjust to calling Doc he and him and his. So it is wonderful for us to also engage in this practice of courage and truth and learning together. This is a place where we get to practice creation, becoming, living into who we are in all kinds of ways and in all kinds of moments. Thank you for being part of this ongoing process of becoming. I invite you into a time of meditation, a moment to center into yourself before we get the biggest perspective possible. And so I invite you to settle into your own body. Settle into your breathing. And I will invite you to move your attention to 3 places in your body, and it will be different for each of you. The first thing I would like you to think about is somewhere in your body where you feel strong, where you feel good. It might be your legs, it might be your heart, it might be your mind, it might be just the tips of your fingers. Just think about where you feel strong and steady. You might put your hands there, you might just put your mind there. And breathe in the part of you that feels good and strong. Then I invite you to move your attention to a part of your body that hurts, that feels like it needs to heal, that doesn't feel the way you want it to. And put your attention there. You might just move your mind there. You might put your hands on that part of you that needs kindness. Then I invite you to just notice that you're breathing, that your body is alive without your even trying to make it happen. The breath of life is moving in you. Join us on a journey through time, a journey of creation. In the beginning is the great radiance. What creativity will unfold? What wonders will emerge in the billions of years before us? Hold on to your seats. We are about to go on that long journey. The great radiance brings dancing energy. As the energy of the great radiance expands and cools, matter emerges and coalesces into the communion of galaxies. And at a moment of grace, the first stars ignite within these galaxies, fueled by the marriage of matter and gravity. And then the stars scatter out into space. The biggest stars continue the process of fusion, forging all the chemical elements within their bellies, and then offering their gifts in a blinding burst of supernovas. All the calcium in our bones, all the iron in our blood, all the carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen in our DNA. All of these were forged in the bellies of these giant stars. The largest stars explode becoming supernovas and giving these gifts to the universe. And then 5 billion years ago, a lovely spiral galaxy came into being through the force of gravity. The Milky Way galaxy of which we are a part. Supernovas, these huge, dense stars, continue to flare forth in the world. $4.6 billion years ago, our grandmother star, a supernova, gives up her of possibilities. And she gives birth to a smaller star, what we have come to know our sun. And this creates debris in space that cools and becomes the planets that circle the sun. Let's sing a song to our sun. You'll find the words in your song sheet. Oh, sister sun. The sun is too small to ever be a supernova, and so its 9 planetary pups are provided with a secure and steady banquet of sunlight. Earth is a grandchild of Tiamat and daughter of the sun. The gravitational pull of the sun has all the planets spiraling in a constant dance. And the comets and the meteorites and the planetoids, the many other pieces of space debris join in this dance of spinning and movement, although none of it is as predictable as we might like. This is the Great Bombardment. In this process, the moon is born when the Earth is impacted by a Mars-sized meteor or planetoid. That moment of impact is also responsible for the fact that the Earth is 23 degrees tilted in relation to its orbit. And that is why we have seasons. That moment in the great bombardment when the Earth got tilted. These seasons, of course, bring weather. And so there is wind and there is rain. And the rain begins to cool the planet. And as soon as it begins to rain, we have new possibilities. And life is born in a lightning flash. The first living cell pulsed into existence from the elements mingled with the water struck by lightning. The bacterial cell came into being, and it had a memory. Through this memory, the cell was able to recreate itself over and over again. The descendants of these bacterial cells filled the seas, and in time they were headed toward collapse because they were everywhere. They were eating all the food available to them, and extinction loomed. There was a mutant among them, one who was a little different. Prometheo arose with the capability of not only reproducing itself, but had invented the possibility of using the sun's energy to make food. Photosynthesis has been born. The communion of earth and sun has been born. Then, oxygen, that invisible requirement of life, began to rise as a major element in the atmosphere. Free floating in the environment, oxygen is a scavenger. It searches everywhere for food. The powers of oxygen are the most formidable of all the elements. It penetrated the cells, destroying them. And soon there was no way for these early cells to defend themselves. The first great eon in our biosphere ended in catastrophe. And 2.8 billion years ago, the Earth becomes the blue-green planet that we know and love. And new forms of life are arising which use all of this oxygen. Oxygen gave the earth a color it hadn't known before. The first global environmental crisis was averted by the mediation of the crucial link between the cycles of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, thereby maintaining an endless resupply of Earth's infinite reserves of the possibility of life. All of these elements work together to make this world possible. And an amazing thing is happening on Earth. One form of life's waste is becoming another's food. Several billion years later, humans will realize that they too must recycle in order for their cultures to remain sustainable. So cells start to hang out together. And some start to do certain jobs, leaving other work for other cells. A community of cells comes together for mutual support. Within millions of years, soft-bellied animals swam in the ocean, and then worms didn't swim. They did. These are the swimming worms. Fungi and algae began to grow. Fungi. But then the climate began to change. Continental glaciation, which is to say big sheets of ice, spread across the globe. And over half of the species in the world declined and vanished. The algae and the fungi and the worms, only a few remained. But the world is still full of those swirling elements, those cycles of regeneration. And so the stage is set for an explosion of life. So as those sheets of ice receded and things warmed up a little bit, things came to life. Fish began to swim in the oceans. The blue part of this planet began to be filled with those worms again, I think, and all kinds of fish. And through the waters swam all manner of things. And then the first amphibians joined in with the fish.
In the deep blue sea, joy to you and me.
But a new problem arose, which is that there was massive predation among life forms, which is to say, they began to eat each other. The peaceable kingdom was ended. Life was put to the test, and there was another wave of extinctions. Many animals disappeared again. But I tell you what, on this blue-green planet, life is persistent. There is so much to celebrate because now the first insects take flight. Now life has learned to fly. Butterflies and dragonflies and all manner of winged things circle around the whole earth.
Circle around the earth. Circle around the earth.
Even the bees. And in the midst of these wings, the first subtropical forests evolved. Land plants discovered how not to just be algae soaking up the sun, but to make wood and to rise to new heights to get even more of that sunlight. They load themselves with carbon and spread themselves around the earth. But those meteors are still winging around, and another one hits the earth. We think that's what happened. And there was another great extinction. This round of insects and most of the trees died. The forests, which had taken so much carbon in, died and collapsed, and they fossilized as coal and oil in the earth. But life is persistent on our blue-green earth. And so 245 million years ago, we're getting very close to the present moment now. That is the moment when the reptiles began to move around on our planet. Dinosaurs emerged upon the land. They were different from all the other animals that had come before them. They were friends with each other. They sometimes traveled in groups, and they took care of their young. They came in all shapes and forms. Some ate meat and some were vegetarian. And in this land, the other early mammals appeared, jumping and climbing and swinging, swimming through the dinosaur world. The small mammals, the little mice and raccoons and koalas and small monkeys and bats, small bears, rabbits, a parrot, I think that's Rudolph. That was an early appearance. A crocodile, the smaller of the elephants. And birds began to appear as family members of the dinosaurs. They began to squawk and chirp and sing and hoot and fill the world with singing. And then flowers began to bloom on the earth because they wanted to make themselves irresistible to the insects and the birds. And so the flowers that were bright colors and had beautiful smells and wonderful nectars appeared. And those flowers made seeds. And there were bees buzzing and the flowers growing, and the garden of earth was a wonder. And then the thing that holds us all together, gravity, caused a problem again. Gravity pulled another asteroid toward us, 6 miles in diameter, and it hit the Yucatan Peninsula. This was the end of the age of the dinosaurs, and this marked a long period of cold on our planet. But those little mammals, they were persistent. And so just yesterday, 165 million years ago, the mammals began to take over the earth. They were able to spread their wings and their territory. And they were out in the daylight when the dinosaurs had been out before. They started small again, but then they got bigger and bigger and bigger. Wolves and tigers and wild boars and reindeer. Those bears came back, the wildebeests, the whales, the gorillas, the larger elephants and the giraffes. Two 2.5 million years ago, the first humanoids joined this fantastic garden. They started to stand up and walk around and use tools. Plants are also thriving in new forms. Grasses of all kinds begin to abound, feeding the mammals. And fruit begins to appear on the earth. This is when things start to get sweet. Perhaps because of the fruit, humans began to invent language and religion and art. Culture is born. 11,000 years ago, which really is just yesterday, agriculture is born. The humans began to plant things and shape the environment. They began to work with the animals. They began to have animals help them farm. Horses, cows, sheep, goats. But the ice came back. Things got cold again. It was hard on Earth. But this ice age was a little more reserved than the earlier. It didn't cover the whole Earth with ice. The plants and the animals moved south, except for the polar bears, which adapted themselves to the Arctic plants and began to survive in the north. The polar bears loved this icy time and started to roam the earth. And this, in fact, brings us to the modern age. This moment that we live in. The earth, the ice pulled back. The polar bears lived on just one part of the earth. We have learned to use the earth's resources in so many ways. We have become scholars and musicians, artists, scientists. We have built economies and governments. And we have created many stories and myths to explain all of these things that happen on Earth. And 57 years ago, which is just a breath ago, we sent people into space and saw ourselves for the first time from a little distance away, saw what we look like in space. We're so used to seeing this image now, but it's really very new that we can see ourselves as we are in this great swirling universe. We now are at a moment of change and precariousness on this beautiful blue-green planet. Species are disappearing again. The Earth is struggling. We are at the edge of another climate change. This time because of what humans have done. And so we have to learn on this interdependent planet how to have deeper respect for this web of life that we have just seen come into being. There's no doubt we are at a difficult moment. And this is a moment asking for our creativity, our inventiveness, all of that wonderful capacity that we just watched come into being. This is a moment for us to use it, to see what's possible for protecting our Earth and making a new future for ourselves and all of these creatures that we have become and scene arrive. There is much at stake, and much is possible, especially if we work together. I invite you to sing to our Earth, sing to our solar system, sing to our swirling galaxy. We are all a family under one sky. You just need to echo the
We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're people. We're animals. We're animals. We're flowers. We're flowers. And birds in flight. We're amphibians. We're reptiles. We're insects and fish in the sea. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're happy. We're angry. We're angry. We're proud. We're proud. We're scared. And a little bit scared. We're sad. We're sad. We're mischievous. We're embarrassed and excited too. We're all a family. Hold up all your animals. Hold up all your animals. Under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We are sisters. We're sisters. We're brothers. We're brothers. We're parents. We're parents. We're neighbors too. And we're neighbors too. We are cousins. We're cousins. And uncles. Aunts and uncles. We're grandparents. We're grandparents. And we are friends. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky.
It is wonderful to recreate the world with you. Take this wonder and this joy out, and this laughter, out to create the beautiful future we want to live into. Please join in our unison benediction. The words are printed in the order of service. Go in peace.
Speak truth. Give thanks each day.
Hey, Mother.
Respect the earth and all creatures, for they are alive like you.